to cover today. I don't know who asked that question. What's your name?
Scotty.
Hi, Scotty. That's one of the things that I'd like to do today is help members of the audience understand the difference between Justin's service and the nonprofit, which is what I run. My whole focus is on really a macro section of trying to change the criminal justice system so that more people have opportunities to earn freedom through merit. But I want to walk you through how to use the website and what you could do to help yourself. One thing I'll say to you, Scotty, off the front end is don't feel as though just because somebody is a public defender, they're not giving you they're not capable of giving you great guidance. I want you to know I've worked with a lot of lawyers. I mean, obviously, I was in prison for 26 years, and I learned a lot through that process. I've been home since 2013 and worked with a lot of lawyers on the other side. And I'm not going to say that a federal defender is necessarily any worse than, if you hire Quinn Emanuel or Skadden Arps. The difference is you're not going to pay a massive fee. So that's one thing to understand. But what's really important, Scotty, in my view, is what are you going to do? What steps can you take to influence this process? And that's what I strive to share. And that's what I want to kind of discuss today. But there's quite a few people I think on there right now. And I just want to, for those of you whom I don't know, or I've never spoken to before, my name is Michael Santos, and I'm really glad to be here with all of you. This is the fulfillment of a very long journey for me, because it started back in 1987 when I was arrested and in this situation of going into the criminal justice system. I learned a lot through the 9,500 days that I served. In fact, it was in that journey that I met Justin, and we developed not only a friendship, but a partnership with hopes of helping other people get the best possible outcome. And most of you, or I would say all of you, have probably come into this community through White Collar Advice, because that's a community that primarily focuses historically out here on people who are going in. My area focuses on people who are inside, and we reach about 1 million people in jails and prisons all across America. And that purpose is to try and help those people, first of all, overcome the challenges that come with a criminal conviction, the collateral consequences that come with a criminal conviction, but also work to try and change the system itself, to bring programs such as work release programs and more access to home confinement and more opportunities for people to earn freedom. So with that said, I want everybody to know that in the chat, I gave this, and I'm going to share my screen right now, but anybody can use it. I created it just for the purposes of this, of today's webinar. And I think you can see it right here, but you can click it and access it. And I'm going to kind of go through this, this channel to try and help you today, to try and help our members of our community today. But what I really don't think this is ever about is not about me. It's about you. When we're here, when we're offering these webinars, we're here to try and help you during the biggest crisis of your life. And some of you may be at different stages of the journey. And some of you may wonder, well, who am I to be talking with you about these kinds of things? I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a guy who was in prison for a quarter century and has devoted my life to trying to change the system since getting out. And I got out in 2013. So what I'd like to do today is share with you, I'd like to start off our webinar while you're thinking about if any questions that you have, you can just type them.
In a minute.
You could type those questions right here, okay? And I'm going to address every one of them that for anybody who shows up right there.
I'm on the call.
But right now, and if you're on the video and you're not talking, it'd be helpful probably if you muted yourself so that so that you're not overriding us and everybody's hearing other conversations that you're having. But let me share with you this site first of all, because Scotty asked a question, just asked me a question about what, and I'm assuming you guys can see my screen. Scotty, could you jump in and say if everybody can still see my screen that I'm showing the website right now?
I can see it.
Okay, you can see it. Okay. This website is very different from this website. This is White Collar Advice, which is a boutique service that some of you are involved in, that provides a really on-hands service for people who are striving to develop a plan. This site is different. This is the one that I've been building, and it's what I run. And I want you to use it as a resource. Everything on Prison Professors is free. There's nothing here. We are a non-revenue generating site, and I'm striving to show that to you, because I always make three promises for anybody that comes into this community of prison professors, and that's: one, I'm never going to lie to you; two, I'm never going to ask you to do anything that I didn't do; and three, I'm never going to ask anybody to pay me a penny. This is to help anybody going into the system. There's always a challenge, and anything that's available here, in all honesty, you could do it yourself, but it's not easy. It's kind of like saying you could do your accounting yourself, right? I mean, I could do my accounting myself and file taxes on my own, but I hire an accountant because there's always things changing, and that may make sense for you. But I want you to know that nobody should fight harder than you for the outcome you want to get. Nobody, not your lawyer, nobody. And those are lessons that I learned, and you could learn about that through these various areas of the site. The courses that are offered here are primarily for people who are in the system. And these are self-directed courses. You don't need to have a teacher. You don't need to have any, but you've got to do the work, because you're facing, in my view, you are facing one of the biggest challenges in your life. You are striving to preserve your liberty, and there's nothing more important than your liberty. You know, you could talk about money, and you're going to lose money, and you've lost your career and your reputation. But as you look through this site, or you learn from Justin, you're going to see there's a pathway through. And our focus is always to have you see there are more opportunities in the future than in the past. But you can't get there by accident. And you can't get there if you don't lay out a plan. The question is, do you know what to do? So one of the things that I do is, I told you, I'll never ask you to do anything I didn't do. So like every day on this site, you will see every day there's going to be a new blog, every day. And in that new blog, there's always a lesson. There's always a lesson for you to be thinking about: what can you do to influence these people that are going to have influence over your liberty in the future? I can only show you what worked for me. And I didn't get out of prison one day sooner. But the law that existed when I went into the prison system is very different from the law that exists today. And you've got to be thinking about, how can you influence the people that have the potential to either give you a lower sentence, or the administrative people, because regardless of what the judge is going to give you, you are still going to want to get lower after that sentence is imposed. And all of these articles here, I'm writing to give you that thought. How do you influence those people? So make sure that you're thinking about that. And if you want to participate in any of these courses, I recently launched this new one that's called Ask Me Anything. And you could come on here and you could read, like, people that you know, this fella asked me a question about plea agreements. And he said, you know, I don't really want to plead guilty to this crime because I didn't commit this crime, and they're charging me with something I didn't really do. And so not only do I do an interview, which is usually 30 minutes or so, but I also write a lesson plan for you to think about. How do you use this? What should you be thinking about if you're facing this kind of complication? How is it going to influence your life going forward? But you see, there's a lot of work that goes into this. It's all free. I'm doing the work for you just to prompt you so that you're thinking. So Scotty, and I'm talking about Scotty Cavaney, the young man who asked me the initial question. You know, if you're dealing with a public defender, you're probably thinking about pleading guilty, or probably thinking about facing a trial. The main thing you've got to do today is learn everything you possibly can. And these webinars are one way you could learn, but there are other things that you can be doing that are practical and pragmatic steps. So I want you to be thinking about that. And if you want to participate in this course, it's super simple. All you have to do, the thing that I don't do that Justin and their team does is do the work for you. My work is about changing the whole system. But if you have a question, just go to that page under courses,
I
ask
have a
me
question.
anything. Okay. If you have a question, I'm going to come to you. I think whoever asked that question, and I'll respond to you today. But I'm showing you that today's only one day. You might have
Oh,
another question in a week. You might have another question in a month, and it might be at a different stage of the journey. But if you ask it here, I'm going to do my best to respond to you. You could also do it right now on this sheet that I added in the chat. But I definitely want to tell you, I am not here for any other reason but to respond to your questions. And I assume if you're here, you do have questions. There are things that you want to learn. Feel free to ask those questions so that I can help. And so I'm going to now say to Scotty Cavaney, the person, I think that's you, Scotty. You asked me a question in the beginning. Did I respond to that question for you, or did you have another follow-up for me?
Yeah, it's first of all, my last name is pronounced Caveney.
I'm sorry.
It's
Save
okay.
me. Okay.
The second thing is you answered most of my question. The link that I was talking about is the Prison Professor's Talent bio, and that's being built by wonderful Roman. He's doing really awesome. And
Yes.
the part that I'm nervous about is my sentencing is June 20th, and I just got a call from my probation officer. They're going to do an interview, but on May 1st for May 2nd, but I was able to push it back due to my conditions with my eyes. So that gives you more time to prepare and that kind of stuff. Not like I haven't prepared, for this past year, but with White Collar Advice and you guys. But I'm just thinking, since my public defender is not supportive hardly at all. I asked him about the personal narrative. He flat out rejected it. The second thing is
let's try and address these in a point by point basis. Is that okay?
Sure. Totally.
So that I can give you an answer to what you're saying, or a response rather to what you're saying. You said that your defense attorney has rejected your efforts with a narrative. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Can I ask, what did you say in response to his rejection?
I just know that he said that that's not how we do things.
Right. And your response to that is it to accept that that's not how we do things, or is it to advocate for yourself?
The answer should be that I should advocate for myself. And
do you know how to do that?
I do not in that situation.
That's a very good question, right? And that's what I would encourage everybody on this webinar to do. If you don't know how to do something, please ask the question, because otherwise I can't give you guidance, right? So Scotty, the first thing I want to do is respond to that question for anybody. And I don't have on here today, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write it myself of things that I'm going to do. I'm going to write a blog about that. What to do if your lawyer is not supportive of a narrative. Now, since I don't have time to go looking through all of the previous things that I've done in the past, I'm going to encourage you, look at the blog that I'm going to publish on that very specific subject. But basically, here's what I'm going to tell you to do, okay? In this article, this is what I'm going to write. If I were you, I would say, I really respect that you know a lot more about the law than I do. But of course, this is something that really matters to me. My liberty is on the line. And obviously, I am doing everything I can to learn. And through that process, I've watched an interview where federal judges spoke about the power of learning about my life, about a narrative. In fact, those judges said that I know everything that a lawyer is going to say. I know everything that the prosecutor is going to say. I used to be a defense attorney, and I was a prosecutor at one stage of my life. And if I have to learn what the prosecutor has to say or what the defense attorney has to say, I really shouldn't be a judge. but I am a judge. The one thing I really want to know is, what does Scotty have to say? And I'd like you, as my lawyer, to tell me why those judges are wrong. And then I would tell you, take a clip of that video where you'll see me interviewing a federal judge, 2 federal judges. I've interviewed more than 20, but 2 of them went on camera for me. And you should take the clip and say, here's a clip. And don't do the whole 30-minute interview. Send them like a 2-minute clip. I'll show you exactly where to put where it is. I will weave it into this blog. And then ask the lawyer, say, tell me why those 2 judges from 2 different districts are wrong when they are asking to hear about me. Why do you disagree with those judges? And prompt him in such a way that really ties his hands. Because have you seen those articles, Scotty? Those
I have
interviews
just
with
about
the
every
federal
single one,
judges?
every single one of them, just about. Yes.
I need you to use that as an asset to self-advocate. And when the lawyer gives you back that response, if it's a response that says, I don't care what the judges say, I'm not going to do it, then you're going to take the next step. Okay. But I don't expect that's going to happen. Okay. In fact, you have a right under what I wrote today. In fact, I'm going to share it with you right here. And it just kind of serendipitously that I wrote it today. But I wrote in today's blog. In today's blog here, if you'll see, founder blog, I wrote this one that says allocution at sentencing. And it even refers to Rule 32, ensures the judge address events directly. This is about allocution. But what these statements say, and in it, I even give you and it's actually from that same judge. Last words, a survey and analysis on federal judges' views on allocation and sentencing. Okay. These are very good assets and resources for you. You see, you want to be able to show your defense attorney that this is not you are not going to be an ostrich and bury your head in the sand and wait for everybody else to fight for you. You want to have an active role in your defense. And you want to be respectful, but definitely show that you've done research and you're not coming from a sense of blindness. Okay, you've got a duty and a responsibility to advocate for yourself. So that's one thing I'm going to do for you, Scotty, is I'm going to write this blog specific to your question. Okay, does that make sense to you? What I just said,
Totally.
Scotty? Great. I count on me to do that. And then you said you had another question, and that goes for anybody in here in this webinar. If you have a question, please don't hesitate to ask the question. I can't tell you everything I learned from going through prison for 26 years if you don't tell me what's going in your life. What stage of the journey are you in right now? But as somebody who's gone through it, I've made a lot of really bad decisions that I paid a very heavy price for. And I don't want anybody else to pay those prices, that price. I want people to learn. But always remember, nobody should fight harder than you for your liberty, the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time. You had another question though, Scotty.
Yeah, I want to share with everybody else too, with the time. So the last question I have is, I wrote an email, like a draft for my probation officer. She actually accepted my personal narrative, my Texas probation officer. This is in Texas. Yeah.
Have you had your PSR or you have not had your PSR?
Not yet.
Okay. That's a great time to present it. That is a great time to present it, because what you want to say at that PSR hearing is something along these lines. I knew I was going to be very nervous, and I knew that I might not get everything said in this interview. So I've taken the time to write a very lengthy description of who I am, what I've learned from this experience, and what I'm doing to try and make things better. And I'd like you to have it. Of course, I'm going to respond to any questions that you have, but this is everything that I thought of that could be helpful to you. And because I want the Bureau of Prisons to know about it as well, I hope you will include it to the extent that you think it's appropriate in the actual pre-sentence investigation report that you create. Again, because it's something you learn that judges appreciate. Okay. And then you could even say that, you should not Nobody should be ashamed of saying, this is a very important part of my life and I really wanted to prepare. Nobody. You should be proud of that, because I think that's what the system wants, is they want to see somebody who recognizes the complexity of a criminal charge and that they're not taking it haphazardly. They're actually doing something about it. So I hope that's helpful to you, Scotty.
Very helpful.
Good.
Thanks, Michael.
And I will also write about that as well. Okay.
I'll be on the lookout.
Include the PSR. It'll be published by tomorrow. Okay. Next, is there another question here? I'm going to look because I want to respond to you. If you have questions about me, I'm happy to respond. But this is not about me. This is about you.
Michael,
So Stormy, yes,
could you talk about restitution?
sure. So restitution is a.
I'm in the middle. Just go ahead and start it. I'm like in the middle of three things.
So somebody
great.
asked me about
Do that.
restitution.
Perfect.
Somebody asked me about restitution.
Yes.
So I'm going to type that down, and I'm going to write something about restitution also. So I'm going to talk about it right now, but I would also encourage you, go to prisonprofessors.org, because I will publish about that. That's the goal of the .org, to share as much information as I possibly can. Restitution is a component of the sentencing and the sanction. And under the current law, every statute has an amount of time that the judge can impose, a specific amount of time. The guidelines will narrow that amount down, but the statute itself, right? The statute itself is what gives the judge the authority. What can he sanction you to? And some of those crimes will have a criminal fine and also restitution, which is repaying the amount of loss that the judge finds is an amount of loss. So the amount of loss is not necessarily what somebody lost. It could be the intended loss. Okay. So if the judge, if the probation officer finds, even if there was no loss, but the probation officer finds that there was an intended loss of $5 million, let's just say, your defense attorney may object. At the sentencing hearing, the judge will make a finding. And when the judge makes that finding, that becomes a fact. So the judge may say, I hereby declare the amount of loss of $1.3 million, and I'm going to order restitution in the amount of $1.3 million. If the judge gives you that as a part of your sentence, it is a part of your sentence, and the only one who can change that is the judge. Now, the law as it exists, or the judge or the president, the law as it exists today means that restitution will stay with you for 20 years, but the 20 years does not start until you've exhausted your responsibility to the Bureau of Prisons, if prison's a part of the sentence. If he didn't impose prison, then the 20 years starts today or the day he imposed it. If he imposes 3 years in prison plus $1 million restitution, then the restitution will not start until you're done with the Bureau of Prisons. So that's restitution. The only way to get restitution off is either through another judicial action, like a habeas corpus petition, or compassionate release, or executive clemency, all of which I've written about on the .org's website. So I hope that answers your question to restitution. I don't know if there was another question follow-up. If not, I'm going to go through these.
I just wanted, just to be clarified, Michael,
Who am I speaking to?
if your restitution is $1 million,
Okay.
and 20 years from now, you've paid $500,000 of that, does that mean that the other $500,000 doesn't have to be paid, or does that mean that can
Yes,
follow
that's
you?
exactly what it means. And the restitution order may be imposed if you have co-defendants. It may be imposed what's called jointly and severally. So if you have 3 co-defendants and the judge imposes $1 million restitution jointly and severally, that restitution order applies to all 3 until the $1 million is paid off. But if 20 years pass and the restitution order is not paid, then the government no longer has a right to collect on the debt. Now, how does it affect you? Well, it affects you while you're in prison in the sense that you're going to have to participate in what's called a financial responsibility plan. And that is a kind of a pain in the butt, okay? Because they'll say it's voluntary, but in all reality, it's not voluntary, because if you don't participate, you will lose privileges, including if you're eligible for earned time credits, you will lose those as well. So it's really obligatory that you have to participate. And they will establish the payment while you're in prison in accordance with how much money comes through your account every month. So may I ask the name of the person with whom I'm speaking or I'm addressing right now?
Sorry,
Who asked me the question about restitution?
it's Arthur.
Arthur. Okay, Arthur, this is a very important subject. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Have you been sentenced yet?
Yes,
Okay, then it's too late for you to ask the judge. But anyone who's not been sentenced, if you've not been sentenced, what you want to do is ask the judge if restitution is going to be imposed to make it not begin to toll until you get out of prison, because the BOP is a terrible organization to work with. So what you have to know about with restitution is you're going to have to comply with the financial responsibility plan. And that means you should know a little bit about how to manage your money while you're in prison. Because while you're in prison, you're going to have a case manager who's going to try and extract money from your account and apply towards the restitution. It's going to be so insignificant that to the general restitution order that it won't even make a dent, but it will make life more difficult for you in prison, because you're only allowed to buy so much food and you spend so much money in the commissary. So I would encourage you, and I will write about that on the blog as well. So I want to write about the implications for you. But anybody who's not been sentenced yet, and if you anticipate restitution, you may want to start advocating to ask the restitution does not begin to toll until you get out of prison. Because it's a lot easier then, because then you're home and you're making money, and you're not going to have these spending limitations that exist in prison. Were there any other questions that you had? If not, I'll move on to the next
We
person.
actually liked it. It's just when we sent the paperwork.
There's somebody talking right now.
This time around, I don't got to do all that because I got everything.
I don't know who's talking, but I'm going to try to mute that person. I don't know how to do that.
so the question I've got, Michael, is you've gone through the sentencing. They either found some amount of the restitution as not being applicable, but they found still a large amount. And so you're saying basically that there's no way, and the restitution is based on the loss. I think you said that.
Well, now it's irrelevant because you've been sentenced and they've given you a restitution order, correct?
Yes.
So the rest of it is all moot right now. Right.
Okay.
There's nothing to talk about because there is an order from a federal judge that says you have, what is your restitution order, if I may ask?
Somewhere around $800,000.
So it's $800,000. That is the least of your worries right now. You want to have the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time, right? I would argue that anybody that's going into this system has to be thinking about, the non-renewable resource for all of us, and that's time. We only have so much time on this planet, okay? You prepare yourself in such a way to get the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time. When you get out of prison, let's launch that battle on restitution and try to get it out. Don't try to do that while you're in prison. Try to get out of prison as soon as you possibly can. May I ask what your sentence length is?
My sentence is 12 months of supervised parole.
Wait a minute. You have a non-incarcerative sentence? Your sentence is only in the community?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then you definitely need to be thinking about restitution. However, remember, you are currently reporting to a federal probation officer, and that probation officer has discretion over you. I would look at saying, okay, let me get what I can to get the highest level of liberty while I'm on this situation. Have you begun already serving your probationary term?
Yes.
How long have you been on supervised release?
About 5 months right now.
So you only have 7 months remaining?
Yes.
So that you don't get any good time then, correct? Because you got 12 months. You didn't get 12 in a day.
Okay.
So you got 7 months to go and then you're done.
That's correct.
Are you earning a living right now? Are you working?
Yes.
And are they taking like 10% of your wages?
I've been sending in an amount every month.
Okay. So I would continue doing that until you finish and you get out of the jurisdiction of the of the court. You're done with the sentence. So that look, what's really important for everybody is to minimize the amount of time or your exposure to the prison system. Once you're done with that, you can then start maneuvering ways to potentially influence that. But if you've got, resources, you should expect they're going to want to collect
Okay,
for 20 years because that's what the statute says.
okay.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you very
Other
much.
questions? Thank you.
Hello, Mr.
Um,
Santos.
Please call me Michael. Whoever's talking, introduce yourself and let me respond to your question.
My name is Shamir Mallard.
Hi, Shamir.
How are you doing? Thank you for the great information thus far. I recently signed up with White Collar Advice. I was sentenced last Tuesday for 6 months in federal prison. What was fascinating is the judge even said, some great things about me. And he said, I don't even care if you do it from home. But I'm not
Do
sure
the sentence. So are you going to get home confinement then?
I'm not sure yet. I don't know if he put that on his order.
Okay. So it was just last Tuesday, so you don't have what's called a judgment and a judgment or a statement of reasons yet. But you
No.
would have known because he had the authority to sentence you to home confinement.
Correct.
If he said I sentence you to the custody of the Attorney General, then it's going to the BOP.
Correct.
And the BOP is going to put you in custody.
They're going to put me in custody. So I've signed up with White Collar just to see if I can hit a home run and to potentially still get home confinement.
You can potentially, but in my experience, you have to instead, like I would encourage anybody going into the system to think in terms of a range. Okay, let's go an A, a B, a C, a D, and an F. In your case, an F is 6 months in prison. That's the worst thing that can happen is an F. Okay, an A is going to be home confinement and never go into prison. Okay. Getting an A at this stage in your situation, in my belief, if you don't do anything, you don't got a shot at getting an A. But even if you do everything, you have to know it's tough because you're dealing with a bureaucratic agency. And that agency today exists. There's an old cliche that says never go to the barber and ask if you need a haircut. Okay. Because, the barbers, right. And if there's somebody in the Bureau of Prisons saying, assessing, 6 months, their mission, their purpose of existence is going to justify the Bureau of Prisons and what a wonderful service it does. Okay. Until it's cut, that's the reality. And so there's going to be somebody in Grand Prairie, Texas, who is looking at your documentation and assessing, does the person have the juice to get you to home confinement? Yes. The answer is yes. But what can you do to maybe advance yourself as a candidate for home confinement? That's going to be the heavy lift, and that's what you're going to work with White Collar Advice on doing.
Correct.
But don't stop there. Think about if I get it, if I do go into the system, here's what you also know. You're not going to get good time. I mean, statutory good time. You'll get earned time credits, but you won't get statutory good time. So on 6 months, you would probably get I think you're going to get 10 days a month. So after 3 months, you would get 30 days. That'd count for 4. I would say you're still going to get out in probably 3 months. If you don't prevail before they sentence you to prison, I would say an A for you is going to be 3 months. A B is going to be 4 months. It's still going to be an F is 6 months. But you've got to try and negotiate and maneuver your way to get out in 3 to 4 months. And I would have a plan for that. I would be building a plan for something I can build. And that's something you can build upon. What do you do in the world?
I'm a medical sales rep.
Okay. Yeah, I would do everything I can to build a package showing why you are an outstanding candidate for the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time.
Okay. And that's exactly what I'm doing with.
Understanding, yeah, and understanding that there are very cynical people that are going to judge you. Very
Okay.
cynical. So you
Okay.
got to fight. Okay, you're about you've already made the biggest sale of your life, getting 6 months, which is pretty
Yes.
good.
Yeah, it is.
Now you're going to make the next biggest sale of your life, which is getting getting out. If you're sentenced to prison, getting out as soon as you possibly can. I think you're at a good time. I mean, you got a new director coming in. They're doing away with the union, the BOP. You know, there's a lot of changes happening. There's an administration that kind of understands the wretchedness of the BOP, and what you have to do is not only the BOP but the DOJ. So you have to do is make yourself an outstanding candidate, and I know that you know how to do that because you're a sales professional.
Okay. Thank you for that. And one other, I guess, added to this question, I have to call in next Wednesday, and they're going to state where I'm going to go or whatnot, how much time I have to prepare.
Who are you calling in?
Calling to the courthouse. I'm calling back
Oh,
to the
that's
courthouse.
interesting because they usually delegate that to the BOP, and the BOP then will tell you. You don't know when you're surrendering yet?
No.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah. So
Okay.
this release plan, it's been, at this moment, it's been written up and the rough draft and so forth. Once I have this release plan, my question for you is, who should I submit this to as far as the stakeholders
So let's
at the
talk
BOP?
about it. That's a great question, and in fact, I have that question on here because that's something I want to write about. Like what, and it's on my screen right now. Actually, I'm already drafting an article for somebody else who Justin told me wanted to know, what do I do with a release plan? That's a very good question. Okay, you can't think of a release plan as a get out of jail free card. It is a tool. It is a tool, and you have to know how to use that tool. If you don't have the tool, you can't use it. If you have the tool, then you got to figure out, how do I develop it? Because everything in the Bureau of Prisons and in the DOJ is iterative. Okay, you are in it. They have to justify themselves. Okay, always think about this system as one where it's a bureaucracy. Okay, and in your business, in the sales business, you get compensated based on results. Okay, get the sale, get paid. Okay, the bureaucracy is very different, right? The bureaucracy is about justifying its existence while they do very little. Okay, except exercise the will of the court. That's their mandate, right? They focus on the process, not on the result. Okay, I want anybody in our community to focus on the result that you want and say, okay, what can I build to get me closer to the result? So like right now, how old are you, Shamir?
I'm 44.
So you're 44. You want to be writing about in your release plan, and I don't know anything about your release plan because I don't do consumer stuff. I don't work with individuals, but I know Justin and his team and what they do. So I'm just going to kind of assume that they have written about your background and about your plans and about how you're using your time today to prepare for success and so on and so forth. But that is one step. And when did you prepare that release plan? Before you were sentenced or after you were sentenced?
After I got sentenced on Tuesday, and I immediately started Googling some help.
Okay. So your judge has never seen that release plan. Is that correct?
He has not, and that's one of the individual stakeholders that my understanding is a judge, he could modify the sentence. He literally said in the courtroom, I don't care if he's where he serves this, if he serves it at home. And I'm looking at my attorney saying, hey man, like tell him let's do home. So it was kind of an interesting situation because he literally said this in front of everyone in the courtroom. So my understanding is, I guess we'll send this release plan to him as well to see if we can get this.
I would argue that whatever you have right now is not going to be the same thing that you have in 2 weeks. Did you write this release plan as if I've already been sentenced?
No, yes. I'm sorry. It's being written by White Collar as we speak.
Okay. So if you're building this plan right now as you speak, it has a finite date. Let's just say it's done today. It's done on May the 5th. Okay.
Mhm.
I want that release plan. If I were, advising anybody that's doing a release plan thing, makes your release plan different on June the 5th in 30 days. Don't just talk about what you're doing, demonstrate what you're doing. Build a record that makes you an outstanding candidate.
Correct.
There's a great analogy that I like to use in the courses I teach. I learned from I forgot the author, but it's called the purple cow. Okay. And are you familiar with that, Shamir?
No, I'm not
Okay.
familiar with that.
Here's what you are familiar with. You're driving down the road and you see a pasture, and that pasture's filled with cows. Okay. A lot of cows out there. And you
Hmm.
just keep driving because you've seen cows everywhere, right? Cows are just part of life. Okay. Nobody pays attention. But if you saw a purple cow, you'd stop and you'd look. When you're going into prison, you're just a cow. That's all you are. You're not a successful dude who sells to professionals, and that you're a cow. Okay. You've got to become a purple cow. Your release plan is what I want you to use to demonstrate you get it. I
Hmm.
get it, right? And I built it today. And whatever you say you're going to do in that release plan, do something more in the next 30 days and update it. Have you
Okay.
seen Prison Professors Talent? Have you ever
Um,
seen that site?
no, but Joseph,
Okay.
I had a conversation with Joseph, and he stated the exact same thing in regards to the release
Okay.
plan.
Joseph
Keep
is an
building upon it.
he's an excellent example. But what I want you to see, I'm going to go back to my screen again. I'm going to share the screen because anybody can do this. Okay. Go here to the website and look at prison professors. Let me just do this. This is going to be easier. Michael Santos, prison professors talent profile. Let's see what comes up. Yes, there it is. I'm going to just click it. So go to this website, okay?
Mhm.
And as a part of your work, because this is free, okay? Whatever you guys do with hiring Justin and the team and all that kind of this stuff, anything on me is free, but you got to do the work, okay? Go to this website, and you could look at mine as an example. This is like a LinkedIn page showing how hard are you working. And you see, it's something that you want to use as an asset, as a tool to persuade people why you are a worthy candidate for those. And you see, I write every day. Every day it comes out here and I'm showing. And I'm doing this because I'm trying to show you've got to persuade very cynical people and get your testimonials. Have people write testimonials for you,
Mhm.
showing why you're worthy of coming home, right? This is the kind of asset that you could use to persuade these very cynical people that you are a purple cow. Okay. Everybody, the one thing you're going to have in common with everybody who goes into prison is you want to get out of prison as soon as you can. Everybody has that in common.
Exactly.
You've got, but the people who work in prison, they are trained to say, I want to keep these people in, right? They need a judge sentences this. My job is to keep them in. So you've got to rise to the highest level, and nobody can do that but you. You will not have an attorney to help you at that stage.
Exactly.
That's the purpose of a release plan. Okay. But make it iterative. Do not make it static. Make it demonstrate that your plan is not just words on a page.
It's a
It's an
living
action.
document.
It's an action plan, right?
Exactly.
And you are working to earn freedom. And we provide a ton of that information. You should look at prisonprofessors.org. Every day I am doing exactly what I am telling you to do because I have a big fight, right? I am fighting to keep people like you from going into prison. And I
Mhm.
have to fight with very cynical people who say they don't like what I do. Prison professors, they're trying to let everybody out of jail, right? But I'm proud of that. I want to help change the system. And that's why I'm grateful to White Collar Advice, because they make it possible for me to do that. But
Mhm.
nobody can do the work that you can do, because you're going to be sitting across the table from a very cynical person who every day he hears from 50 people coming saying, I want to go home. Okay. You got to be the purple cow, and you got to develop your tools. And if you don't know how to develop your tools, you can get a lot of examples on prisonprofessors.org. Every day
Okay.
there's something new.
I
Okay.
have a question.
And
Okay. All right.
thank you.
I'm happy to answer your question. Whoever that is, just state your
My
name if
name
you
is
could.
My name's Joan Gillen.
Hi,
And my
Joan. I'm
son,
Michael
hi.
Santos.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for all this information. But my son was recently incarcerated about a month ago. And when you were talking about a PSR, I'm not exactly sure what that was, but I've made a lot of notes. And I understand it's some type of investigation report.
Well, before you get in, let me just ask, has your son been sentenced yet?
No,
Okay. Is he in federal court or is he in a state system?
federal court.
Okay. So he has not yet been charged. Is that right? Or he's
That's
been
correct.
charged and or he's just not been convicted.
I'm not sure.
Do
They're
you
still
know?
investigating, actually. They asked him for a 60-day extension.
Okay. So what your son, he's in what's called a he's not charged yet, or he's definitely not convicted. He may be charged, he may be facing charges, but he's definitely not convicted. And what you have to do with your son is help him understand the journey ahead. Okay. Make sure he understands the journey ahead. If you go to prisonprofessors.org, you're going to see a lot of free stuff, but you may need to talk with somebody. And if you need to do that, go to one of these webinars. These webinars are every week. I'm just filling in for Justin today, but typically they are really responding to your questions. Okay. But I really would encourage you, Joan, to learn as much as you can. I did not do that. And I made a lot of really bad decisions because I didn't understand the system.
Yeah, we
And
don't
it's
understand the system.
Yes, but you do understand life, okay?
Mhm.
The problem with people that go into the system is they forget, hey, you've been successful in other areas of your life. What did you do for a living?
My son?
You.
Oh, I'm a nurse. Excuse me.
You're a nurse. My wife is a nurse. Okay. You didn't become a nurse by accident, right? You had to study biology and chemistry and anatomy and physiology and all those subjects. And then you had to pass the boards and you had to do all of these things to become a nurse. Okay. Now, in theory, somebody could just read the nursing books and say, oh, I can pass the NCLEX exam or whatever that exam is, you
You
know,
got it.
but in reality, it's the training that helps you become the best in the world at what you do. I can give you the information and you can assess whether you could do it yourself based on the information that I give you. But if you need a guide, I 1,000% endorse the team at White Collar Advice, and I created a
Okay.
lot of the stuff that they use. But nobody should work harder than you and your son and your family for the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time. And that means understanding what's a plea agreement. Okay. If I take a plea agreement, what does that mean? If they offer me this many years or this many months, what does that actually mean that I'm going to serve in prison? What administrative remedies can I pursue that might give me an opportunity to get out early? What options do I have? What are the odds? What can I do to influence sentencing? You know, there's just so many things that you can do. It's like asking you, for you to tell me everything you know about nursing in an hour. I can't do it, right?
Right.
But I can show you, give you a resource, and you could spend dozens of hours on prisonprofessors.org, and all you're going to do is learn. And if you learn, you're going to be able to be more effective at advising your son.
No, he does not have that access, right?
No, but you do.
Okay.
And you could go there and you could read it and learn it, and then you could come back to these webinars and ask questions. Okay. And then we could give you some suggestions. Like I cannot emphasize enough the importance of getting to understand what is a plea agreement. What is it? Because that's going to come up pretty soon. Okay. And he's going to have to make a decision. Do I plead guilty and take a lower sentence, or do I go to trial? And to make that decision, you've got to take a lot of factors into your calculus. How much money do I have to invest in an attorney? Am I really going to win? right? What can I do to lower the sentence? Sometimes, it's better. And I would recommend that you read this article here. This is going to be a very good tool for you. It give you a lot of information. I wrote it just last weekend, I think. Let me see, prison. It's prison. Always, it's the .org, right? That this is where all the free stuff is. So if you go to the blog, or yeah, I think you can go to the blog and then just scroll down. It was about plea agreements.
Okay.
Just look for the one on, there it is, considering plea agreements. It was from April the 27th. Watch the interview, okay? And then read this so that you could understand, because this is going to come. This is going to come up. Because they're going to try and, if they asked him for a deal, they're going to come up. But what you want to do is help your son understand the opportunity costs that come with every decision.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Is there another question, Joan?
Yes, I have a
I don't-
question. I'm James
Uh,
Belisarius's mother, Rita.
I will stay on the phone for anybody who's asking. So if you have questions, that's
Thank
okay.
you.
Go ahead, Rita. Yes.
Thank you. My family and I have been on a group call with you a couple of times right after James first was incarcerated 2
I
years ago.
remember
It's
he's
2 years
the hedge
already.
fund guy. He's the hedge fund guy,
Yep,
right?
he's a hedge fund guy.
Hey, look
who
at that
was
memory. I
now
remember.
Now he's teaching in the Jessup prison. But
Okay.
anyway, but he's not teaching hedge funds. But anyway, he's been trying to write you. Where is there some place where he can either email or write you?
The best way, Rita, is for you to take control of that. I mean, there's a
Okay.
million people going through my stuff. Okay.
Okay.
And I just it would be my focus has to be to get him out of prison. And
Right.
that's a policy decision, right? I focus on the macro policy changes. Okay.
Okay.
But if you have a question, I want you to have him write
Yes.
to you.
Yes, sir.
And then have him, and then when you have your question, you could either come to the webinar, okay, or you could go right here. Go to this section here on this website, prisonprofessors.org. Go to, and this is the nonprofit, so it's totally free. Come to the courses section right there, and there's a section that says Ask Me Anything. And just type the stuff in right here. Just
Okay.
answer it right there. And then what I do is I create something, like this. I create, typically I'll do a video and I'll write the stuff and I'll write a whole lesson, and then you could print it and send it to him. Okay?
Okay. Are you still doing those calls like the one we had?
No, that was something that we did a couple of years ago that I was
Okay.
doing this, that my focus has to be changing the law.
Right, right.
And Justin focuses on individuals, but I'm really obsessed with trying to change the law so that your son can work to earn freedom and come home based on merit rather than the turning of calendar pages.
Can you give any additional comments on the differences in the new administration, if there are
Well,
any yet?
Well, there's huge differences, but that they have not manifested themselves yet in policy changes. The difference
Okay.
is that the one thing all of us have in common with the president is we all have a mugshot.
Okay. Okay.
So he knows what happened to him, right? And because
Yep.
of that, he has already taken some very assertive steps in that he's hired, the pardon czar. Okay, and there's a pardon czar right now who served a 20-year sentence, and so she knows. Okay, and there's a new attorney general, and the attorney general talks about the importance of implementing the First Step Act. They've just hired a new director of the BOP, and that's really what my work is about: is trying to influence those people, but without getting political. I'm always optimistic that there's more opportunities coming than there was, but I can't predict the future. All I can tell you is every individual has to work for himself.
Thank you so much, and God bless you and your family and your beautiful
Thank you.
wife for everything
My beautiful
you guys
wife
do.
is awesome. She's behind me. All right, thank you. So who's next? Or should I just read these things?
Michael.
Go ahead. Yeah. Yes.
Charlie O'Hearn.
Hello, Charlie.
Actually, you can probably read it. It's actually Paul's question in the chat. I had a good question in there. It's about, I took a plea, pre-sentence, pre-PSR, working with white collar. I think his question was putting eyes on target of your judge in sentencing. to get a feel for what they do. Does that have value? Is there risk? Risk reward?
Repeat your question about the judge.
So his question was, attending sentencing hearings by the judge that's going to sentence you prior to your sentencing hearing to try and get, know your enemy sort of stuff.
I mean, I think that's great if you can do that. If you could just go sit a thing, I would be somewhat cautious in the sense of because the judge is going to know the defendant and he's going to recognize him in the courtroom. But you don't have to go to that judge. You can go to any judge. But
hey, Michael, it's Paul. Sorry, I'm working, delivering, trying to make money.
Got it. I got it. That's okay.
So like the gentleman was saying, I'm very, very early on in the process. Very early on. Got my target letter.
Well, good for you for preparing, Paul.
Yes. So I just had a phone call I have a public defender because I listen to Justin. If I'm not working, I'm probably on your site on Justin. I've watched as many videos as I can. Sorry.
Okay.
And so I have a public defender because after thinking about it, it's enough evidence that I wouldn't even have enough money to beat it. So let's just call that what it is. And so as I'm talking to my public defender, what you and Justin have said has been 100% true. Nobody is more invested in your freedom than you. So I got my target letter. I called my public defender. I'm calling him. Took him 8 days to get back to me. Meanwhile, I'm just I need him to get back to me. I'm not trying to prolong this. And then we had a conversation, and my frustration with him was we were having a conversation without him having my case information. So then we had that conversation. And then we had another conversation 2 weeks later, and he says he's talked to the prosecutor, but he still doesn't have my case. Anyway, he told me my guidelines, which are which is 8 to 10, 8 to 10 years. And so in my mind, I'm okay, I need to be very proactive, but I'm trying to figure out, judges are sensitive to certain things. I want to be very transparent. I want to be very intentional. I want to be very deliberate. I'm not trying to run a scheme, a con, or anything like that, but I'm trying to mentally prepare myself. So that's kind of what my question was. Do you recommend it? I haven't been in front of the judge, haven't seen the judge, anything like that. Is that something that I should really do, or where do I need to focus my energy besides working and trying to save up money for my time away?
Yeah, Paul, thank you for the question. I think that truthfully, in all honesty, the fact that you are taking an effort to understand the system, that is the best thing that you can do. And I would really encourage you to learn everything about every stage of the journey, including where you are right now. You have not yet been charged. So there is an opportunity for you to start building and developing a record that might make you a better candidate for the charge that you actually get. Okay. That's a strategy. That is a mitigation strategy. You know, at every stage, there's a mitigation strategy. The strategy for you right now, you said it's 8 to 10 years, but that is you don't know that. You might be able to negotiate a strategy to get you a 5-year statutory cap. You might be able to negotiate a strategy that could result in you facing 3 years. You might choose a strategy that could result in you getting 20 years. So the best thing that I would do if I were in your shoes was make sure I understand every stage ahead. And if you're working with Justin, their team can help you with that. I just don't work with individuals because I don't have time. Okay.
Right.
I'll do these webinars monthly. I'll write on the website every day and I'll respond to those questions. And you could go to that same Ask Me Anything and I'll respond to anything.
Shut up.
But I would tell you, you've got to learn everything you can. And you have to ask yourself, am I doing everything that I can? On a scale of 1 to 10, what am I doing? I would just argue on a scale of 1 to 10, the fact that you are very early and you're already learning about the system, I would give you a 10. That is a first step. That is a very important step to say, I want to learn. Because if I can learn, then I can start saying, am I doing everything? right? And you could read all about it. If you said you're spending time on .org, that's where I'm writing a lot now. You're going to learn every day I write stuff to help. Okay.
Okay.
So just learn about every stage. How could I potentially influence the charge? What's the difference between a statutory cap and federal sentencing guidelines? What can I do to influence the guidelines? What could I do to influence my judge? What could I do to influence my probation officer? What can I do to influence the Bureau of Prisons who may have administrative influence over me? What could I do to get ready for probation? What's my career going to be like on the other side of this journey? There are so many questions, okay, that a person has to ask that, I would definitely be doing exactly what you're doing. Learning, going to the courtroom, I would not say is the best use of your time, because that doesn't mean that the person that the judge is sentencing may be very different from you. He may
Absolutely.
have cooperated. He may have not cooperated. He may
Okay.
have a criminal history of 15 times. He may have violence. You don't have violence. I don't know. What I do know is you have to focus on yourself, because if you focus on yourself and what can you do, you will be in a better position. And all you can do is work toward getting a better than zero chance of improving and influencing. And you've got to work every day. And that's what I do. So I'll never ask anybody to do something I didn't do and I'm not still doing today. And I hope that will help you along your journey, Paul.
I appreciate it. Last thing, and are you able to, or is there a resource? This is my first time ever hearing about statutory cap. Never even heard of it.
What's the crime?
So healthcare fraud, wire fraud.
So it's a
and
20-year. You've got a 20-year statutory cap. Every one of those counts has a 20-year statute. Okay, and the judge. So earlier I spoke about an A, B, C, D, and F. Okay, and F would mean what's the worst possible case? The worst possible case is a 20-year statute. If you have multiple counts, it could be stacked. Like I had a 45-year sentence, Paul, because I made really bad decisions in your stage. Okay, I wasn't doing what you were doing. I was instead trying to believe I was going to win, when I was guilty. So healthcare fraud has a 20-year statutory cap. That's the most the judge can sentence you. He could stack it if you had 3 counts and say it's 60 years, but that's unlikely. So 20-year statutory cap. But within that cap, there are what's called federal sentencing guidelines. And those guidelines are going to start at a specific range. Depending on the amount of loss, it's probably going to be a 7 is going to be the baseline, and then enhancements based on the amount of money. And you could learn all of that by if you're researching my site, you're going to see all that, right? You're going to learn all that if you're working with Justin's team. Your job is to do everything you can to win at various stages. The first stage, try and influence that statutory cap to change it to a 5-year statutory cap. Learn if you could do something to do that. 2, it's going to be to get the lowest possible sentence. 3, it's going to be to assess whether you want to go to trial or plead guilty and take a deal. 4, it's going to be whatever the judge gives you, what can you do to get a lower sentence? Okay. 5, create a plan that you could measure and execute. Am I building? Am I doing everything? Am I doing everything that can make sure I'm the best candidate to get out the earliest? 6, you're going to want to think about your career on the other side of this journey. There's so many things, Paul, but nobody is more important than you.
Okay.
All right. Who's next?
People are at work too, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Okay. Who's next? Anybody next? I see there's a ton of comments here in this chat. I can't read them, but if anybody wants to unmute, I'll respond. Okay. Then it sounds like everybody's good. I would just want to thank you for being a part of our community and hope that you'll. Oh,
I have a quick question. Yeah, I have a quick question.
All
I finished everything. I finished my sentencing and all that, and I'm on probation. Then I got a restitution letter. I got a clemency. I was provided a clemency, but I guess it doesn't have anything to do with restitution. Well, the FBI called me and they wrote me a
Wait a
letter.
minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let me just
Yeah.
get clarity here. So from what you just said, you have been sentenced, you served your sentence,
Served. Yes.
and then you
Mhm.
got the president commuted your sentence?
Yes. Yes.
Which president?
Biden in
Biden.
December. Yeah.
God bless you. Okay. So
Yeah,
Biden
okay.
commuted your sentence, but he did not commute the fine?
Correct. Correct. Which I didn't
much
know. I did not know this until approximately a month later after the clemency. I got a letter from the FBI saying I owe this money. So
Well, let me ask you another question. When did you
Yeah.
get convicted?
May of 2020.
Okay, so it's 20 years. Just so you know, the law, if I'm going to go
Yeah.
a grade again, an F means it's 20 years from the date that you got a commutation. Okay, but I would do something different. I'm going to give you some other advice. I just want to hear your question. I needed to have those facts before I could advise you or suggest anything.
Okay, my question is, I got a call from the FBI agent. I sent all my paperwork in saying, this is what I can pay. He goes, look, we want you to pay this off. This is, I said, all right, well, what do you want to do? Are they want to negotiate with me. Can they do that? Because you were saying, no, the only person that could do something is a judge, but I'm
the
getting
judge will
something.
have to issue the order. Okay. The judge they could definitely negotiate with you, and then they can go to the judge and say, we want to do a deal. And the judge will have to sign off. Yeah, the judge has jurisdiction over for your sentence. But wait a minute. I'm very surprised. Can I ask how much your restitution is?
70,000, but it was calculated wrong. Should be about 23. I had these lawyers that calculated it wrong. They brought it.
How did you get a clemency? Did you do it yourself? Or did you
I
have
did it
somebody
myself.
help you?
I did it myself.
How long was your sentence?
It was 84 months, but I only did 35 months because I got out on the CARES Act.
Oh, you got out on the CARES Act and then you got clemency because you were already out.
Yes.
I see. Okay, so that's a little different situation. I would still. What do you do for a living?
I was a physician.
So I presume you have assets and resources.
I didn't hear you. What?
I presume then that you have assets and resources that are in excess of your restitution order.
Well, yeah. I have a house. That's about it. Everything else is gone. That's it.
So
yeah.
So Felicia, I'm going to just say, what are you doing now for a living?
I am being a personal care assistant to my 95-year-old father and my brother. So that's
you have no
basically
income. Is that right?
And Social Security.
Okay. Have you considered filing a pro se motion to your judge asking for him to, and did you do that?
Not yet. Since I got this call and they're trying to negotiate, I thought, okay, well, let me do this first. So
I mean, if you could do a lump sum and negotiate, and that's not going to hurt you, then it's probably a good idea. But before I did that, I would probably try a pro se motion and ask the judge to grant you relief, explaining the reason why. I'm no longer a physician. I don't have an income. I live on Social Security. I know that the FBI is pressuring me to do this. I would ask for an order to commute or to because he has to resentence you, and then he could resentence you, just eliminating that portion. Or what are they asking you? What are they asking you to pay?
Well, they don't know. I said to them, look, I told the agent, look, this was calculated wrong because I had these lawyers and I fired him, and then I got another guy, and he goes, this should have never been. They figured it out wrong. They took your legitimate business and mixed it in with something else. I said, okay. So he said, you will pay something, but not that amount. So
yeah, I would try and settle.
That's how it
going
was
to be
figured out.
I would try to
figured out
settle
wrong.
if I could, but first, before I settled, I would try and get it relieved. I don't know if you're I know nothing obviously about your case, but I would definitely try to get it resentenced and taken off. Yeah, it's not that hard to do. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ashley has a hand raised. Please let me respond to your question, Ashley.
Thank you. My husband had written a narrative that's like 70 pages, like he hand wrote it, because he's at pre-sentencing, and he's already had his
70 pages
PSR.
is a little too long.
That's what he's very detailed. So should I, because he hand wrote it,
Okay.
should I kind of like try to truncate it?
I don't know your husband. I don't know anything about his case, nor do I know about, what is your husband? What's his educational background?
Bachelor's in science.
What does he do for a living?
Well, he was
Or
a
did
day
he do?
trader.
So he's a finance guy.
Mm-hmm. He's
Um,
also a strength coach, so he's kind of well versed.
so here's the thing. Is he pleading guilty?
Yeah, he took a plea.
Took a plea. What is he expecting the sentence to be, the range?
I think the points that they're saying right now is 18.
So a relatively small sentence.
I know he
I
said
mean,
that's like 4 to 7 years.
oh, I thought you said 18 months. Okay.
No,
4 to
points.
7
The
years.
points,
Okay. How old is he?
41.
41. And so 70 pages, but I'm just going to tell you about it. A federal judge is a busy guy. They
Mm-hmm.
got to read a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
The danger of doing 70 pages, in my view, is he could say some things in there that could actually hurt him, because it's kind of like, if you're a surgeon, right, and you have appendicitis, you might want to get another, even though you know how to take out your appendix, you might want to get somebody else to do it for you. The problem with people doing it themselves is they tend to minimize their involvement and make excuses
Mm-hmm.
instead of focusing on what the person should do. And the person should, what he should, and that's hard to do on doing it by yourself. So what the
Mm-hmm.
best thing you can do, what's your educational background?
I have a bachelor's, biochem
Great.
and biology. Mm-hmm.
So super smart family. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Do a thorough reading of that narrative. And if you find one sentence in there that one sentence that your husband wrote that somehow minimizes his role in the offense, it's not my fault, somebody else put me here, the prosecutor didn't understand, if you only really knew me, you wouldn't see that I'm a good guy, right? If there's any of that, you got to get somebody to help you. Okay.
Okay.
Make sure that and you have to be objective. Okay. And that's really, really hard. Your husband shouldn't go to prison. I know your husband shouldn't go to prison. Okay. But you and I don't count. You've got an audience of one. And that audience, he is probably a former prosecutor. And that prosecutor, which you have to recognize that prosecutor is thinking, is he's saying, the only reason this person is saying he's remorseful is because he got caught. Just anticipate that. Okay.
Yeah.
The more you anticipate, okay, I am facing a very cynical body. And 70 pages to me, it sounds like I'm telling you what a great person I am and why I shouldn't be in this situation. And you guys just got it wrong. I only pleaded guilty just because, the risk. Bad, right?
Yeah.
Think about the best possible outcome and how are you going to get it? The only thing for you right now is the result. How you get there is not nearly as important as getting you the result. So you've got to be insanely objective. If you can do that, then you're in a very skilled position. Most people can't, in my experience.
Yeah, no, agreed. Once I do that, or work to do that, since he's already had his PSR, they don't really want it, right? The attorney doesn't want it. But I do have the email to the person that did the PSR. Can I email that to her and ask her to do that? Or how do I make sure it gets to where we want it to be?
Well, okay. So did he hire counsel or does he have a public defender?
Yeah, we hired very expensive attorney that has not done much.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate situation that I hope everybody in our community is listening to. Attorneys are really very good at getting the sale, but after that, they're not as good as answering giving you providing the kind of support that you need. So be very cautious. The first thing you have to do is make sure that you're hiring the right attorney. And unfortunately, we can't change the past, but what you can do is the same thing that I recommended to somebody else who asked me a question earlier, and I said I was going to write an article about what to say to the attorney. He was
That
asking
was
me
me.
about, yeah,
That was me.
Scotty.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to write an article about this and you could see it, but it'll be published by tomorrow. That I'm going to put some links in there, and I would go to your attorney who says, I don't want it. I have a God complex and I know what I'm doing and I'm not going to, listen to anything you have to say, right? That's a possibility. What you have to do is give him a task, and it can't be too long. It certainly can't be 70 pages. Okay.
Right.
Because did you pay this guy are you still paying the attorney by the hour, or did he charge you a fixed fee?
Oh, he charged us up front.
A fixed fee. So he's done working. He's got his money. He doesn't want to read anything. He doesn't want your input. He says, I'll hank it from here. And his job now is getting another client. Okay. Unfortunately, that's what happens to people if you're not active. But what you can do is, if you could meet with the attorney and said, hey, I've been doing a lot of research. I watch these judges' videos and I'm going to put them on there, and said, they say this is important. Why do you disagree? And say, I need you to make that case for me, or fire him. Because your husband is about to make the biggest sale of his life. And, just because you paid this guy $100,000 or whatever you paid him, doesn't mean you have to stick with him. You could say, hey, I don't have any more money. I can go with the defender and argue to get the best outcome. Your only job is to get the the lowest possible sentence.
Yeah.
The second job is, whatever the sentence you get out as soon as you can through administrative means. And all of that is a process, and nobody's going to be more important than your husband.
No, agreed. I had told him that we're fighting for his freedom, and I didn't know why they wouldn't want somebody to be an advocate with us. And they basically said their business, they weren't interested, and they would charge us per hour for doing time with Justin. So it's like, oh man.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Oh, with Justin, my partner?
Yeah, because I had sent him some of the videos, and
Use
they
the free stuff. Yeah, look, I'm going to write an article about this because I'm going to address that, and I'm a nonprofit, so nobody pays me anything, but you got to do
that's what I've told them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
You're awesome.
So I just hope, I'm sorry that your family's going through this, but you've got to fight. You got to fight for your right to party, as that old rock band used to say. Okay. Any other questions here?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Dominique.
Yes, I had a question about, so there was a question in the chats that I relate to, just in a different way. And it was M. Tabish. Is it appropriate for a federal inmate to write a letter to his judge to try to receive benefits from years of completed programming, even though the inmate is not qualified for FSA?
Well, okay, the judge does not have the authority to grant your loved one FSA if he doesn't qualify. That's a congressional law, right? So the law put in there, these specific crimes do not qualify. And so a judge doesn't have the authority to override Congress. On the other hand, the judge does have the authority to grant compassionate release. So if your husband or loved one has a crime that doesn't qualify for FSA, I'm just going to show you. You don't have to take my words for it. You can just, you can look. Let me go back to this crime. I think it's right here. I'm going to share this thing. And you could go here to, these are guys. I don't know how long has he been in prison?
For me personally, my husband has been in prison 3 years now. I believe he's
And how long is his sentence?
5 years. So he should be getting to a halfway house.
So these all people didn't qualify for earned time credits, and they were all serving multiple life sentences, and they're all home right now. Okay. Because the judge couldn't give them time credits, but he could grant them compassionate release. I don't know your situation of your loved one. I don't know. But if he's going to ask the judge for something, he should ask for something that the judge has the authority to give. Okay. And from what I'm hearing from you, that sounds like a motion for compassionate release. And it's very tough to get, and you'd better have a good reason, but the judge does have the authority.
Okay.
to do that.
But my husband, so that was their question. For me, my husband had found out that he can his reason, my husband's reason, was his recidivism rate was too high. So
I lost you. Somebody's got their thing muted. I didn't hear what you said.
okay, my husband's reason that he does not qualify for FSA is because of his high recidivism rate.
Okay, that's not a reason. A reason that you wouldn't qualify for FSA has to do with the type of crime. If you want to know where to find that information out, just go here. You could actually see it. It's very easy to find. So let me see. That's the wrong. Stop sharing. I want to share with you screen so I could take you there. So all you have to do on this, let me show you where to go. Go to bop.gov, right? And then up here, it'll say First Step Act right there. And then you're going to come down here. Let's just see. One of these is going to have a link, disqualifying offenses. Do you see that right there?
Yes.
You click that. Then you got to look at his PSR or his judgment order and see, is his crime on here? This is the only way you don't qualify. Okay, if it's here, because this is what Congress said. So it has nothing to do with his recidivism rate. Has everything to do with whether he has a crime of violence.
Maybe I'm misremembering something, because he's done the drug program. He just graduated from that, but he's not able to get the year off because of his recidivism rate.
That's different. The drug program is also very specific. You can't have a crime of violence and get the year off.
And he doesn't.
Does he have a gun?
Yes, it was a gun charge. It was a gun
He
charge.
can't get it. He won't get that year off.
Right. So he's already
just
knowing he's not getting the year off, but he also did a lot of classes, including
programs.
some of the ones that you offered through in his detention center. He had like 500 certificates, lots of hours, but wasn't able to get any time off for that. And from what he's told me, it was because of his recidivism rate. So he was trying to get it dropped.
That's my job now. That's the kind of policy changes that I'm striving to change. It's a long time horizon to get those to change. So I'm not gonna, I can make no prediction on when those policies will be changed.
All right. They did tell him that he can request his recidivism rate dropped so that he would be able to get credit for all the classes and things that he took.
Good. He should pursue that.
He's pursuing it. It's gotten past the warden, but now it goes to the district.
Where is he?
He's at FCI Phoenix.
Okay.
And he did get discouraged because one of the staff, someone else had asked, hey, how long should I wait from the time I send the letter in to the district? And she said, oh, the district person never approves any of those. But one thing that was mentioned the last time I was on one of these is for him to just keep looking forward. There's going to be a time where he's going to be released, and he needs to think about what happens after.
Yes.
More than trying to get out sooner.
100%. There's always, how old is he?
He's 34.
He's very young. This time is going to pass, and there is life on the other side of this. You have to build, and if you spend time on the .org site, you'll see a lot of examples. There are books. If he hasn't read any of the books that I've created, I would recommend you send them to him. Okay.
Thank you very much.
God bless you. Thanks, Dominique. Is there other people there asking hands? I see JT Cora. I don't know if I've responded to you or Ashley, but I see hands up.
What's the FSI? Is that First Step Act?
The FSA is the First Step Act. Okay.
Yeah,
I gotta
Michael,
go.
I wanted
Oh,
to know,
okay.
I just had a question about the compassionate release, or is that the only way to get a sentence reduction? And is that typically only for health reasons that it would be granted?
Typically, compassionate release is related to health reasons. It's a little bit more complicated than people understand how to get it. You should always anticipate that the Bureau of Prisons is going to be very resistant to granting it, because that's their mandate. but it's the
Right.
district court judge that can grant it. And are you going into the prison system? Is that why
Yes,
you're asking?
I got sentenced. I got a surrender in a week, and I could not. I did all the mitigation I could. I think what kind of jammed me up was that I got a probation officer out of a different area than mine, and he was like totally by the book on everything. So he tried like putting my
All that's behind us
he
now.
tried
So let's not waste time talking about that. Just
okay.
tell me, what's your sentence
So,
length?
78 months. I'm working on getting time served for the time I was already in the county, the time I was in rehab, and the time I was in treatment. But I wanted to know, like, I run a recovery home and I also run a nonprofit. All of this
Okay,
I've done in the
JT,
time that I got out.
JT,
So does that count as a
no.
as a
Let me just
mitigating
respond to the
factor?
question really quickly, JT.
Yeah,
You're going to get credit for any time you spent in custody.
right.
So if you were in jail, you're going to get time for that once you get to the BOP. That will not
Okay.
happen until you get to the BOP. Running a
Gotcha.
nursing home and recovery and all that stuff, the BOP's not going to give you credit for that. And I wouldn't fight for that. I would tell you, my recommendation to you, learn as much as you can about that system in this next week before you go in, and start building a body of work that will make you a better candidate for administrative relief, not next week, not next month, not next year, but come up with a realistic plan. And that realistic plan, you've got to say, if I do all of these things, I will be a better candidate for relief at a certain time. If you go in there the first month and you say, I want to get compassionate release because I don't belong here, you're going to hurt yourself. You're not going to help yourself. You got to understand where you're going. You're going into the Bureau of Prisons. It is an environment that is designed to obliterate hope. And if you don't understand that, ask anybody who's been in it. Okay? It is a design to obliterate hope. Your job is to build hope, but more importantly, build a plan, engineer a path to success. Don't engineer a fantasy. Engineer a path to success. That's what Prison Professors offers, and it's free, but don't think it's going to be, they're going to see you, oh, look what I have. I have a nursing home and I help people, and they're going to see you as a criminal, and a federal judge sentences you to 70 months. Your job is to change that. And that's a heavy lift.
Right.
And I'm only telling you as somebody who did 26 years in prison. Okay? I'm not telling you I'm not giving you anything that I didn't experience. But my recommendation is you work hard on this. Okay? Hey, it's 2:30. I know JP will be back here next week. If you guys have questions, you could always go to the Ask Me Anything on prisonprofessors.org, and I will respond every day. But I got to disconnect. So be cool. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. God bless.